name is Michael Gibson, and the gentleman here to my right is my friend Stephen Brodie. You can see him in The Lone Ranger, starring Johnny Depp and Armie Hammer. Thanks for coming out.
Appreciate it.
Could you tell us a little bit about the acting experience?
On The Lone Ranger?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I could tell you how horrible it was, but I think I'd be lying.
It was a pretty amazing experience, just to be cast in such a film, you know, huge, epic film, and to work with the caliber of actors that I got to work with, Johnny and Armie and William Fichtner, and to be directed by Gore Verbinski was pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
Could you tell us about some of the stuff on set? Your experience with that?
The set, like I said, an epic film, huge sets, huge, undertaking. In some of the stuff that I was working on, they built the side of a mountain, for example. So, alongside, up against an actual mountain, and they just made it seamless. I didn't really, it was like, I actually on set, when I first saw it, I looking here going, oh, this is a cool little canyon. They're like, oh, this is not real. What? That side's real, this side's not real. It's like, wow. So they built a whole side of a mountain and a tunnel, and they built the train. They built the train from scratch. Instead of using, pieces of ones that were already out there, they built it. Millions of dollars to build a train from scratch, and it was pretty incredible. So that, and then all the little details from the actors, the costumes, I mean, this is everything. It was just amazing. It was so realistic and so such attention to detail that you just really feel like you're there.
Absolutely. Well, I know this isn't your first Western. You've worked in Westerns before. What was actually your favorite Western?
Favorite Western? We don't get a lot of Westerns these days, which is it's sad. Which is one of the reasons I was real excited about this. I mean, honestly, growing up, I watched a lot of Westerns. There were reruns. I grew up. I'm not gonna say when I grew up, but I grew up. I watched a lot of reruns of Westerns from the 50s. I watched, like Bonanza, Big Valley. My favorites were Lone Ranger. Was one of my favorite. The other favorite I had was The Rifleman. Chuck Connors is The Rifleman. Those were the two that always stood out to me. That I just enjoyed. And when I think about it, they both have similar. You've got a character that's out for justice. You get the Lone Ranger, and The Rifleman is the same thing. Those are the two that stood out. They were always my favorite. And then looking back now, I feel like there's a common theme there. I guess I'm drawn to that, which I think a lot of people are. We like to see good triumph over evil, and all that stuff. So that's why we go to the movies a lot.
Okay. Well, what was it that made you decide to become an actor?
Well, I kind of always was always interested in acting growing up. Watched a lot of movies, watched TV shows, and loved the idea of being an actor. But I was always very shy growing up, so I never pursued that. I was grown before I got the courage to jump in there and do it. And so I don't remember, there wasn't a point, I know a lot of people, have like a favorite actor or someone that they just, they see a film and like that's the moment that they just, I wish I had a better answer. I never had that moment like that, but just growing up I felt acting was just something that I always interested in, and it always spoke to me, and like I said, I had to get the courage up at some point to finally just jump in there and do it. So.
Absolutely. Well, you've come to this point where I know you've done a lot of indie films before this, and what is it like to work on an actual big budget film? The difference between?
There's lots of differences between. On an indie level, typically you're working with a smaller budget, and you get stories, great stories, but it's, this is our story, the two of us, sitting on the sofa, having a conversation or whatever. You get a lot, because when you have a lot of money, you can't afford, big elaborate sets and costumes and that sort of thing. So it's more character driven, which is amazing. and you do a lot of good work like that. But to be able to take that and transport it into the Wild West, for example, and just have period costumes and people making sure that the makeup, the hair, the costumes, everything is perfect and looks amazing and is, and people checking to make sure it's period correct and and that sort of thing. And it's just so nice to be able to have that the scope, the hugeness of that. And in addition, you're also working with bigger actors, and your talented director like Gore, for example. So the difference there is when you're working with these people, you trust them. You trust that the work you're doing is good. I've worked on some indie films where sometimes the director may be less experienced than you, or maybe his first film or second film, which is fine, and we all have to start someplace. But as an actor, it's like you can be in a position where like you've done more work or you've seen more things, or like that's probably not a good. But you're the actor, you're doing your job. On a big project, you're working with someone like Gore Verbinski. You don't question, is this going to be good? Am I doing things right? Am I making the right? You just go in and do your work, and it's a freeing experience because you do your work, and you trust that if he doesn't have you do it again, it was good, because he knows he's got a vision and he knows what he's doing. He knows what he wants, and he's a keen eye and he's watching you in the monitor. So you don't have there's no nerves, there's no questioning, is this going to be good? Am I going to get a copy of this? And that happens. So it's just so much more fulfilling in that respect. Not to knock indie, because I love I've done a lot of indie films and I love it, and different types of roles. But it's nice to have the enormity of something big as well.
Right on, definitely.